Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Oh yes, I'm so glad you made it. Baby, because some people ain't making it. Beach, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Listen, welcome to the M.I.P podcast, the most important person podcast. I'm your host, Monroe Alise. Listen, this is the safest room to be in. Why? Because it's simply there's no negativity in here. Oh yes. Baby, this is the no judgment zone. Listen, baby, we gonna laugh, we gonna cry, we gonna shed some tears, there's gonna be some fears expressed, but most importantly, we're gonna do all of those things together. Why? Because people who need people are the luckiest people in the world. Please, if this is your first time, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, push that notification bell, do all of the things, okay? I want you to come on back. Now, tonight, I'm so excited for the guest that I have. Let me tell you, this woman is absolutely amazing. She's done so many things. And I'm going to read her bio because, baby, listen, the things that she's done, I don't want to mess any of those things up, okay? Dominique Morgan is an international award-winning artist, activist, and philanthropist. As the director of the Fund for Trans Generations at Borealis Philanthropy, she oversees the largest global philanthropic initiative for trans and non-binary individuals. Dominique also leads Starks and Whitiker Consulting as founder and CEO. Her work spans sex education, radical self-care, and transformative youth development, aimed at dismantling the prison industrial complex through her initiative, Gender to Prison Pipeline Theory. A 2023 GLAAD Award winner and recipient of multiple accolades, including but not limited to the 10 Outstanding Young Americans Award, NAACP Freedom Fighter Award, and J.M. Kaplan Innovation Prize, Miss Morgan is globally recognized. She is the only Black trans woman with a street named after her in her hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, and the first living trans woman to receive this honor. So without further ado, I want to give you my sister. Listen, the people's champ, okay? Because baby, she out here doing the Lord's work. The Dominique Morgan.
Hi, sis.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so honored to be here.
Listen, so I know that I've said this whole bio of yours, but I want to share the first time I met you. Mm-hmm. It was the Trans Visibility March in Orlando, Florida. And baby, it was hot. I'm talking about hot that day. And we were all in a tent, and I remember you had your fan, and you had another fan.
Correct.
And we had shared introductions, and baby, she let me use her fan. And she had poured into me, and she was telling me about the amazing work that she did, and she shared information with me, and she shared her contact information. And she told me that if I needed her, don't hesitate to reach out. And you've just been a light and a love ever since.
Thank you. No, That march was huge for me. It was, right after pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was like our first time, I think, coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still I know as though I'm very early in my transition, although the world doesn't let me be young, right? But it was a huge moment for me to just be there at the march. And you're right, sister, the level of heat, it was a lot, but we pushed through, and I remember just us marching. I tell that story of we're chanting, the girls are giving a nasty chant, And we look at each other and we go through a block.
Then
We hit
another
2 blocks. And I'm like, well, the girls are still moving. And I'm like, baby, the wigs are slipping. Things are happening. But yet we carried on.
We made a way.
And even when I think about those moments, I'm always like, even in the uncomfortableness of that, that we get to do it, that we have the option to be uncomfortable while celebrating and existing and being loud and singing and celebrating. So no, that was a beautiful moment. And was this 3 years later, we're back for the march again in DC.
Yeah, I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that you're here. So I want to let y'all know that, like, if you saw the first episode came out, it was like a huge shock to everyone, because I said nothing to people about it, and this has been like my baby for like a very long time. I'm very Erykah Badu about this. I'm an artist that I'm sensitive about my shit, okay? And I posted it, and I was telling Gadget, I'm nervous. I don't know how people are going to receive it, and all of these things. And I'm talking about my anxiety was through the roof. But to see you come in the comments and not only celebrate this moment for me, but offer to come here and sit on the couch and share space with me.
No, as someone who has been privileged enough to have my dreams come together, there's a lot of things that fuel me, but one of the biggest things that fuels me is bearing witness to other people's dreams or being in service to other people's dreams. And I think that people don't realize that there's some reciprocity to that. Every time, the more I show up for folks, the more people show up for me. The more that it's just there, and it went from knowing that it was a part of it to it being habit. And so I see you as one of our supreme talents in our community, and your presence is extremely powerful. And I'm like, there are a lot of girls who need to not have a podcast. There are a lot of people who need to mail the equipment back. And when I see somebody who should be sharing voice, somebody who should be giving wisdom and knowledge, somebody who can draw people in, you have a energy where all sorts of people lock in with you, and you're able to touch different people in a different way. I don't always say something, but I will get on my YouTube TV and watch you on Good Morning DC when you do those segments.
Thank you.
And so I was like, oh baby, I'm in town. Yes, ma'am. Can I pooch through? I was hopeful that it wasn't, because again, we'll be in our heads, the world, and I was like, this is her moment. I didn't want it to seem like I was like,
not at
the
all.
world, right?
Yeah.
And so when you received it in the way that I was like, I would love, if there's anything I can do. I didn't know if you were doing guests. I didn't know if you had a list. But girl, I'm in town.
No.
I'll pop out.
Listen, and first of all, and that's the thing, like when people kept asking me, like, so are you going to be doing, I'm like, listen, I'm going to let God be God. I'm not trying to, ask any of my friends that do the work to come on here. I'm not trying to tap people on their show. Like, I just really, because I really wanted it to happen organically. And I think that everything happens the way that God, the universe, aligns things, right? And I know we just went straight in, but I want to ask you first, how are you? Like as you, because you are the most important person in your life. I mean,
I'm good. I'm really happy. I think that I know that I'm in a place that I never dreamed I would be. Not around like work and all these other things, but just the sureness in myself, the progress that I have seen within myself, I trust myself. And so like there are days when I'm great, there's days when I'm awesome, but I try to look for good, like just maintaining good, but then having all those other things in place. And I'll be 43 in about 6 months.
Girl.
And I'm just like, okay, like I feel like I'm getting this thing called life down. And I remember being younger and being, a person going into the prison system and all the things where I would watch other people who I thought had it, and I'd be like, dang, I wish I could figure out who I'm supposed to be. I wish I could know what my career is supposed to be, or I wish people could look at me and know me for something outside of someone who just doesn't have it figured out. And it feels really good to kind of wake up in the morning and know my purpose and know what I'm supposed to do.
I love that. I love that. And I'm so glad that you talked about like being younger and looking at other people who had it and wanting that. I just recognize that we have, like, we are more alike than different. And I say that all the time because we as human beings, we like to complicate the simplest things and try to make it seem like we're one of one and, all of that. And listen, live, love yourself, live on and love, but we are more alike than different. And I just realized that your father was a Marine and my father was a Marine, right? And I talk about gender roles being assigned in my home very early and that like playing on how I then spent the next years of my life. When was the time that gender roles was assigned in your home, or when did you get introduced to gender roles? Can you remember like the first initial...
If I'm being real, they were there before I was born for me, simply because my parents met in the 9th grade. They were high school sweethearts, and they married right when they graduated high school. They got married June 12th of 1981. Then my daddy went off to Okinawa. And then mom figured out she was pregnant with me. I was born in March. So when I was born, my father was in Japan in service. And born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, both of my parents. And my mother went to North Carolina to the base with me. Like I've recently found some letters of my mother, like writing my father, telling him about how I'm growing and things. But my father was a junior, I was a third. So even in that succession, I was already given an expectation. It's very interesting as I fall in love with like all of me, and again that trusting of myself, and I'm a perfect mixture of my parents visually, and so, and in most people's context, you look at my father and it's like by looks, by name, by being the firstborn. There was an expectation.
Absolutely.
And my father was the oldest. And my father was, out of all the kids, he was the one that had it together. He was the football quarterback. He was the one that came back from the service and married, you know what I'm saying? Like, daddy had it together. And so there was that expectation of me. If I had to be honest, though, around areas where expectations harmed me more than anything, it wasn't around gender. It was around performance of having it together. Right? It's like it was like my daddy didn't so much care about like whether I was gonna play football or some stuff like that, or like there was chores and things, but it was more of I came from these ideal sweethearts, and like I was getting kicked out of school, and like I was in school suspension in 1st grade, right? But I'm showing all this intelligence, but
your path is different.
So and they're struggling because they're just like we got the house, my daddy working 12-hour shifts, like what's wrong with you, right? And so I think that the bigger pressure was my parents had the expectation that giving me the life they didn't have was gonna instantly make me better for them. The truth is it did. It just that my seeds took a little longer to like bloom. Because there is nothing that I do now that's not based on like the work ethic that my father taught me, and all the ways that my mother showed me, and the way they taught me how to love people. My activism is based on how my parents showed me how to love.
I love that.
But yeah, it was a lot from the jump because I was the oldest, and it was just like, well, of course you're gonna have it together. And I honestly, I didn't even know what together was. Like, some people pretend or imitate. I didn't even have anything that I thought I could perform to give somebody an idea that I had it together. So I just let them see me completely fall apart, which was low-key the best thing I ever did.
I say that all the time. I say that everything that has happened to me has been the best thing that has ever happened to me because it has made me who I am. So would you say that the pathology of like having it together, because that's something that I believe has been passed down, right? Would you say that in those times when you felt like you didn't have it together, and you talk about being incarcerated, and I know that knowing that that was what your parents came from, and then having life direct you in a place of being in prison, I know that had to affect you in some way.
Absolutely. Some irony for me is the most staunch and clear times that I can like really like feel tangible around my daddy, like expressing how he loved me through action, was when I was impacted by the system. Because my daddy was like, I work, I take care, y'all have a home. Like, that was him. Now, and it's so funny, my father was a Cancer, my mother a Sagittarius.
Cancer.
But now that what I know about cancers, I always be like, where was my daddy's Cancer energy? Because both of my parents passed very young. So I'm always like, where was this at with him? And I know Cancer men, it's a little bit different.
Very.
But at the same time, I think that probably came out with the way that he loved on my mother, because they were just like peas in a pod. But for my daddy to take off work, I knew it was serious. For my daddy to drive to come and show up to court, for my daddy to make that time, the only person who came to visit me in prison before he passed away, my dad was coming. He was making that drive. He was doing that, and I think that my father's approach to love was based on like action, like he having to fix things. And so if I had to even look back at that pathology, I think some of the ways that I would kind of fall apart is like, that's how I knew he would show up. And the saddest thing was, the most scary space I was in, I experienced the biggest kind of expression of that love from him. But it was about 6 months into my prison sentence when my father passed away. He was 41. In 3 years, I will have outlived both of my parents.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow! And I know that you will, and I know that you will.
I believe there's work to do, and when we did the Pisces album, there's a song
phenomenal. By the way,
you.
I was bumping it earlier.
Thank you. There's a song called "I Am" that I dreamed, like truly dreamed that song, because I was
19, I think. 18, 19.
Yeah, in there, because I was like, it gave me closure.
Yeah,
I was done with the album, and I dreamed it, and it was the words were, it was just I was just like, I don't want to do another ballad. This isn't supposed to be about that. This is the first album I'm doing, like, this space of transition. It's the pandemic. I'm just able to lock myself in the studio and say whatever. I'm out of the label deal, so I'm producing it myself, so I can do what I want to do. But that there was a line in there that made me, I was like, I have to record this. And I am my parents' wildest dreams. Like, we talk about ancestors, but
Absolutely.
I needed to say that it was very clear how my parents did their very, 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 very best for me. And I reaped the benefit of that to this day. And I want the world to know that y'all are reaping the benefit of Troy and Colleen raising me well. It took me a while, you know, I was a newborn baby kind of walking at first, but once I got it, there is nothing that I accomplished that isn't based on the way that they taught me how to show up. And through prison forced me to grow up, and prison forced me to understand that you might have to do all of this on your own. I also think, and I'm hearing this in my head at this moment, we had the Repro conference the last couple of days, and one of the doulas was talking about the importance of, we might need to bring some doulas into the trans community, because trans people are birthing themselves every day.
Oh.
And prison forced me to raise myself. Because I was 18, I was still very immature, of course. But my mom and daddy couldn't save me from that. And like, to experience that grief there with my father passing, to just have to grow up, it's also the same skills that I feel I pull from as a Black trans woman, that you're going through puberty again at 40, and you're figuring out what your likes are. I never liked candy again in my life, but now I got a family-sized box of Skittles. All of that, right? And I'm
sweet tooth of
very
it all.
much the same skills of raising myself that I put in place to hold me accountable when success comes into play. There are a lot of people who cannot be successful without people watching them to keep them from messing up. And what I do know about success is the most powerful moments are when you're by yourself. So those skills from that time in my incarceration of like figuring out in solitary confinement, 18 months, like literally not leaving a room, showering 3 times a week, for nearly a decade in prison, 6 months of that living on death row in Nebraska due to overcrowding. It wasn't resilience. It was like, these are going to be the tools that are going to prepare you for the grind, the solitude, the loneliness of being the first. Everybody want to be the first, but that's very lonely.
Yeah, very
lonely. And so yeah, there was a preparation that was there. But my daddy, I'm very thankful that I was clear as an adult that he loved me before he left here. And we are 2 people who talk about spirit. The work that I've been able to do since my transition and being my father's daughter has brought us so much healing in the way that I'm able just to, I had a flat tire the other day and I just had a whole conversation with him because those are the things where I'm like, I would love to call my daddy and be like, my AAA, I messed up. I would love for my daddy to tell me, what'd you do? You don't have the right oil. I would love to be fussed at by him in that way. Me and my boyfriend, we were at this Hawks game and I heard him back in my head, he was like, look at you at this basketball game. And so it's also very important for me to keep the health of the relationship with my parents together. Although my father's been gone 22 years and my mother, she's been gone since 2009. So I know that kind of wove from your initial question.
No, now listen,
but there's
girl.
There's a continuity between the separation of incarceration and it training me to, yes, be okay alone, but then me realizing the power of community and understanding that it takes skill to keep people to want to be in your world. That if I want people to be associated with me, I gotta know I have the skill, I can handle it by myself, but I also gotta curate the skills to be amongst people. I have to curate the skills to show up for people. And it all has, thankfully, thank God, has paid off. And that's the stuff I focus on most days. Like, girl, you somebody wants to be around.
Absolutely.
And how am I showing up for myself and my people?
Absolutely. And while you were even sharing all of that, it just made sense of how you show up for the community because of the way, the love and the compassion that you got from your parents and like how he showed up for you in those moments. And that's what you do. That's what you do. Now, I heard you reference, your boyfriend, your partner. That was a great segue into dating as a Black trans woman.
Yeah.
Like, what has that been like? Because I remember being in Atlanta. I
rebuked it.
I remember being in Atlanta.
In the kitchen at the house.
In the kitchen while you're cutting fresh flowers.
Indeed. And
I was talking about going through something with one of those no good short-term, situations and being a hopeless romantic. And I was just like, no, I'm just going to take a break. I just need some self-care. And you said, well, sister, if your self-care is sleep or sex, find your liberation. Like, you don't have to be attached to no man and da-da-da-da-da. And you was giving me all of these things and it was not in the cards for you.
It was not in the cards, but engaging in that is what made me not care about the cards. And then they just can't. And I know this seems so cliche, but I got divorced in 2018 and it almost got me. And I was just like, I'm cool. I went into this phase where I was like, what can you control? What can't you control? And you realize in this world, all these things have been happening, but we're not documenting them on Instagram, on Twitter, and these fools will cheat and somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I miss the days of let your girl be across town and never shall we cross all those things. And I was just like, this stuff is so grimy. I can't control that, but I can say, you know what? I'm gonna divest from hurt that I can control. But I also don't want to close myself off from like experiencing joy in people, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I knew Christian and I met a little bit after I moved to Atlanta, but again, I was like, child, please. And so we were just cool. And I am a songwriter first. When I thought about how I was gonna change it, it was like I wrote my first song. I was like 7 years old. So like writing songs got me through solitaire. Like I left prison with a bag of like 300 songs. Like that was that is like my anchor. And it was last fall, and I was like, okay, if I do another project, one, it needs to be very different from anything I've ever done. It needs to feel challenging to me. One reason I moved to Atlanta was like to be in this creative space. Victor Jackson had just released a single like last fall, and it was like April Showers. Now it was like, I love the sound of it. And I was like, I'm excited to do music again. But I realized that when we talk about ministry and what your ministry is, words and how you put things out there are prayers in many different ways. Just because it's not uttered in that way, it's a speaking of over things.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay, I done wrote all the songs about how these niggas ain't shit. Can I say that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I wrote those songs like that, and I'm just like, okay, what is the point where I've expressed it to get it out of my spirit to where now I'm speaking it over my life? And I was like, well, what if I started writing a love song even though I'm not in love? I want to see what that does. So this was like October. I got it like charted in my Apple Notes. And I asked myself, I said, what is like a song that when I hear it, I know that person, like, this is what love feels like. And Whitney's All the Man That I Need. I always think it, but there's a acapella version when she comes back into that chorus and she goes, she takes that half step. That whatever that note is, that is the sound of love. And I remember sitting there and I was just like, okay. And I sent like that clip to my producer, and he sent me this beat back where he had kind of played with the sample. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna write a song about like, what is that man? Who is that? What does that look like? What does it feel like? And maybe like 2 weeks later, Christian, like I didn't even realize he was following me on Instagram. It very much was a sneaky leak situation. I was like, what is you doing in my socials? You know what I'm saying? Like, because
you're one big.
Because as much as people think that I show everything, you know, ma'am, it's quite curated.
You know.
And I was just like, I like him. And so we hung out. I was like very busy in the month of November, and I always told myself, what I knew was I was never going to shrink or shift for a man again.
Absolutely.
And literally, in November of last year, there was like 6 days I was in Atlanta. And I told him those days. Now, previously, when dudes been like, I want to get to know you, I'd be like, I'm busy. They'd be like, dang, I guess you're too busy for me. Correct. He was just like, okay, well, these are days I'm off. I'm going to take those days off to be available. I was like, okay.
This is different.
Right? And then followed up and make sure and did the thing. And so we hung out. And then we were like, okay, we're going to plan this day. So then we're kind of talking. But then I'm still like, child, this can't be real. And our sister T.S. Madison did a Christmas Eve party.
Shout out to Madison.
Shout out to the icon.
Legendary.
BTS.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, if you like, I'm not going to be the trans person you like the one trans person you know how to respect. I need to see how you are around some other trans folks. I need to see how you are around some queer people. I knew Miss Mary would be, how do you treat an older black woman? Because I also was never going to do a relationship where I could not live life with you. I wasn't going to living life in a house. Listen to me, girls. Living, him hunching on you, loving on you, it literally could bathe you every night. But if it can only happen inside the house, I'm not saying you have to be an Instagram couple. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you don't have the choice to go out to dinner, if you don't have the choice to bop to the grocery store with him or the mall, I was like, I'm not doing. I bring too much to the table. I don't care what you're going through. I know I'm a gift. And we went. And he went out with the fellas and smoked and did his thing, and we're there, and Miss Mary is feeding him pie, and it was seamless. And I was like, so our first, I would say, official day, we consider Christmas Eve our anniversary, and then his birthday is the 30th of December. I'm a Pisces. We overdo things, so then I'm scared, right? Because I'm like, I like him, and I'm ready to be like, and I'm like, okay, his birthday, and so I I kind of thought about what I want to do. He's a Hawks fan.
Oh, okay.
I went through his feed, and he go to Hawks game, but he hadn't been like down.
Amen. Okay. Mm-hmm.
But also he don't know. Like he knows, but he don't know.
Yeah.
Because he had.
I don't think he knew.
No, because he hadn't Googled me. Because it was something that happened later when he had Googled me, and he was like, I didn't, didn't know.
Yeah.
But he knew, but he didn't
know.
So I was like, I'm gonna put him on the floor. We gonna get on the floor, and I was like, ugh. So I called my best friend Andrew. He was like, back up. So we're like 4 rows back.
Okay.
Because I was just like, I still want to give him experiences are life changing in my opinion, right? And like, yes, capitalism and money is one thing, but for me, it's just about making us have access to what we want to have. And we went, and I was just like, and I'll never forget. I had trained myself to like either walk slower than a man or walk in front of a man or a man pulling away or that be a thing. And we got out the car and we're walking, and he stopped and he reached his hand back. Bitch. I could have cried right then.
That would have took me.
I could have cried right then because at my big old age, I was like, and the way he just hit, pulled me in, and that's how it felt, and that's how it's really felt with him. Is that there's a lot of no's. It's scary for me. Like on top of loving, I was used to being alone, and not having to talk to somebody. Like I'm a neurodivergent person. I've worked all day. I was used to shutting things down, honey, watching my Law and Order, and he's there. He's like, I love you. How was your day? And I gotta fix my face. I gotta fix my mouth. I stayed in my marriage too long because my praxis around speaking to black men was based on that black man who hurt me. And so even when, so Christian could frustrate me the smallest thing, and I was talking to him like I would talk to my ex-husband. I'm like, this man ain't did nothing to you. So I have to do so much more learning in this relationship than he ever has so far, thus far, because he is the most kind, most nurturing. When he went to talk to his parents, his brother texted me earlier. They be grilling at the house and just it is I don't know. It's mind-boggling that this is what it is. We got a dog now. He just got his first haircut today. And also I'm trying to make sure I don't lose myself in that. Like, how do I love this and be excited about it? How do I build this thing with this black man? How do I enjoy that I have somebody that I really love, and even in times we're frustrated, somebody who makes me want to try, while also really finally loving who I am, and wanting to sit in that some days, and wanting to just like be in the Dominique Morgan of it all, and but it's interesting. It's deeply interesting. As black folks, it's so awkward to experience what white people have always had, and so like even when I think about it, it's like white trans girls of color, they've had these men who have put in the time, even men who
grab the hand out in the world,
and these black men will.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
A white trans girl with Kool-Aid stain on their lips will be sufficient enough, right?
Enough.
My girl, my wife, huh? And so I also was like, yo, this is why these folks have so much capacity to handle life, because they get these other things that cushion them through it. Romantic love is a cushion that people have intentionally tried to keep from black trans women. And in this, I'm just like, yo, like I got all this other stuff, but I'm not gonna lie to you. It was my day for my birthday. I'm a wiggy girl. Boots. But baby, up under this wig, it gives Lil Bill.
Girl,
boots, right? But my world is so tight. It's not something I'm subconscious about, because I feel like I am who I am.
No, absolutely.
But my world was so like refined. Niggas wasn't staying the night at my house. It wasn't. I'm giving you what I want to give you, and I'm going about my business. By March, we're like 4 months in. We done went on vacation. We went to Florida. He was there for my book launch at Vanderbilt. No, I was about to push through. And he was like, so how long you gonna sleep with the bonnet and the wig on? When you gonna? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's the day for my birthday. He takes me out. We do this thing. I said I wanted to learn more about play. And so he takes me to Dave & Buster's. I had never been. And we just have this beautiful time. And I get so comfortable. I walk in the bathroom and I forget he's there because he's also very quiet. Girl, I done sat my wig on the counter. I'm washing my face. And he comes around the corner. And I'm like, you ever been so still you hope somebody don't see you?
Yes.
And this man looked at me and said, this is when I had to go in the bathroom and to where he thought he had upset me because I was crying so hard. And he looked at me and said, my brother told me that you see a true person's beauty when they don't have any hair blocking anything. He was like, you're the most beautiful thing I ever saw. Bitch, wore me out. And I was like, why would you say that? That's what I said, and I just started bawling. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Girl. I'm fine. I didn't have the words to process it." And I went in the bathroom. I called Andrew. I said, "I don't know what what is happening?" And I was just like, "Yo, like this is." But I had wrote all those things in this song though. And I was just so I've been that Dolly Parton quote around dreams have a aspect to work to it, and wishes are just it's like hoping that things just come together. And I think I reached a point where I was focusing on dreaming about love instead of wishing about love, recognizing that there's work to it. And by no means does not mean that we don't have arguments or disagreements, absolutely. But I'm saying that in regards to there's a level of healing that I've gotten through this relationship that I will be forever grateful for. This is the man that I want to be with forever. But if this ended today, there's a level of restoration. I know that if somebody wanted to, they would. I hadn't experienced that before. Even if, because it's just got to be one. I know one exists now, and I think for me it's very important around being in love with my blackness and focusing and addressing like any anti-blackness to be rooted in like loving a black man for me.
Absolutely.
For me. And so yeah, we still rocking out and pushing through and yeah, it'll be a year on December 24th.
I love it. I love that. Like I'm a hopeless romantic, and so I get like the biggest hope from seeing people in love that look like me, right? And like even hearing the stories and seeing you together. And what I mean by you together, like you on live or you and he in the background playing the game or something. Like I love that. Like I love that, and it lets me know that it's possible. And so I'm just so, I want you to continue to stay in the moment. Continue to stay in the moment. Continue to keep doing everything that you're doing. And like, I love that for you. I love that for you. And so we have come to the point in the show. Well, but I'm hungry.
Boots.
I'm hungry. And so we're about to get ready for That's a Chew. Now, sister, you saw the first one, right? Now, you know how That's a Chew go.
Correct.
We're going to eat a little something. We're going to review it.
Amen.
And we're going to tell a story. But I want you to tell a story.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So we about to get ready. And today we're going to do a review of Teddy's Roti Shop here in the District of Columbia. It's a Trinidadian space that has all of the things that you can imagine, from curry chicken to oxtails to swordfish. So baby, I got some curry chicken and roti.
Yes, God.
We're going to get our plates. We're going to go ahead and do that, and we're going to come back for That's the Chew.